Hey friends, before we dive into this week's episode, just a heads up. Our podcast talks about suicide, sexual abuse, and other trauma, and some of what you hear may be triggering, so please listen with care. This is The Survivors, real stories, raw conversations, and the truth about what it means to keep going after the hardest things. We're so glad you're here. Let's keep surviving together.
Hey,
What's up?
Just here to talk about all the things. And I know we have something that we wanted to talk about very intentionally today. And that's something that I know is going to be a little probably emotional and tricky for you, because this is going to be a conversation that focuses on where you're at right now and what you're going through. You and I had decided to flip the order of shows that we're doing. The show that we're doing right now was going to be next week's, but we're pushing it up in the order because it's kind of timely for you right now and it's where your heart wants to be. So we're going to talk about just what you've been going through lately. You've had a lot. You and I have talked a lot about compound grief, and we've talked a lot about layers of life that weigh you down, and you've had a lot on you weighing you down, and I know you wanted to talk it through, and I know you asked me earlier today if I could kind of put the crisis counselor hat on, and I'm happy to do that. I'm absolutely happy to do that. So we want to talk about kind of breaking taboos, talking about the things that we're all kind of trained to not talk about. Those things that are the things that we try to encourage everybody to talk about, but it's really, really hard. Like saying I'm not okay, or saying I'm resentful, or saying I'm exhausted, or, saying I'm having dark thoughts. And that's one of the things I spend a lot of my time doing as a crisis counselor. I mean, for those who don't know, I have been working with the Trevor Project for many, many years, and we're a crisis and support lifeline for at-risk LGBTQ youth. And so I'm just putting my Trevor Project crisis counselor hat on, and let's just run with it. What is on your mind that you want to talk about?
Well, I've always been very intentional about, especially as I've become more public about what I'm, my journey and everything like that. And my social media posts I essentially like a journal for me. So I actively post in a day, like what I'm going through, what I'm feeling. And I realized at first it was a burnout. It was after we moved last month. So it's been about a month since we moved into our other house. And first it presented as a burnout. I was just tired. I was exhausted. And then as the weeks have gone on and, we're getting settled and nothing major, I guess, has happened, but I'm just continuing to feel depressed and down, and the exhaustion is still there. There's very little joy in my life. I don't have much to look forward to. I'm just existing at this point. And so this is where I'm going to go ahead and say the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, please do.
Where it's when I get this way, and I know that I do this when I'm feeling this way, I self-isolate. I come home from work, we have dinner, we spend time as a family, but then as soon as the kids go to bed, I'm in my room. Sometimes I don't even make it all the way through the evening, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm tired. I'm going to my room. Because that's what I do, and that's what I've always done, is I self-isolate. I don't talk about it. I hold it all in. George is not actively aware and maybe he is, and he just hasn't said anything. But I realized it the other day, and I forgot I'm going to excuse myself in a second here, and I'm going to go grab some poems that I wrote the other day while I was at work. And I was listening to some music, and these thoughts were just coming to me. And essentially what it is that I'm not actively, like, as I've shared before, I have struggled with suicidal thoughts. It's not that I'm actively, like, wanting to end my life, but essentially, if death was to come for me, I would be grateful.
Okay. So as someone who listens to conversations like this a lot, and they're all different. They're all very, very different. I think the one thing I would ask you is, at this point, have you, I mean, honestly, this is kind of crisis counseling 101, and what we do right from the jump is really kind of need to establish a baseline.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you were calling me and you got me on a hotline, I would ask you directly, have you done anything to try and harm yourself?
No, I have not.
Okay. And I would ask too, where you say that I mean, I know that your history, and I know that you've had several attempts in the past. How does how you're feeling right now compare to the way you were feeling when you made the attempts on your own life?
Well, I know that it starts here, where I'm self-isolating. I'm shutting down emotionally, mentally, and physically. I know this is where it starts. So I have enough self-realization, now to know that if I continue down this path mentally, I will end up there, where the plans start to come into motion, where I start formulating a plan or start thinking of ways that I could end my life. Now, the part for me is after, it was, 3 years ago now, after Brandon died, my brother Brandon, I was actively formulating a plan, was writing my goodbye letters, and I went to write the goodbye letter to my children, and I couldn't go through with it because I couldn't do that to my children. So at this point, what's going on in my head is I am simply living and existing so that I don't hurt my children.
Okay. So what was it, if you can even name it, what was it that maybe happened that caused this shift? Was it just a buildup of all the things that were happening with you at one time? Was it one isolated incident? Was it a certain kind of stress? Like, can you name it, do you think?
This episode, it stemmed from the move, being forced yet again to move. So this was our 9th move in 10 and a half years. And it was completely out of our control. It seems to be when something happens that's out of my control, when I can't control what's happening, and because that's how I've been able to manage my life, is as much as I can control things, I will, to manage the anxiety, manage the stress. And so when things happen that are out of my control, then my body freaks out. Like, I know without a doubt my nervous system is completely dysregulated. The smallest things annoy me. Perfect example. Josh and the kids are eating snacks on the couch while we're watching a movie. It sends me into a blind rage. Like,
Are they spitting up on the couch? Are they
No!
Crushing potato chips and shoving it in the cushions? Like, what are they doing?
No, they're simply eating or unwrapping a candy.
Yeah.
And
you're losing your mind.
Last night and Dominic, he likes to build what I call a nest, where he gets all these blankets and these pillows and these cushions, and he builds a nest, and he's what I refer to as my Velcro baby. He's 12, but he likes to be next to me, and he wouldn't stop moving.
Oh, okay.
And as I'm saying these things out loud, it sounds so petty, but I know in the moment, and I just quietly got up and went upstairs. And he knew. The sad part is he knew. I didn't. I literally, as quietly, as calmly, just got up, grabbed my water, and walked upstairs. And he looked and he saw, and he's like, "Mommy, I'm sorry," because he knew. Yeah. And I felt like such an asshole.
But
I really did.
You said it yourself. You didn't do anything. You didn't say anything. Okay, he picked up the vibe. He had a feeling. He knew he was restless. He knew it probably is what got you off the couch. But I want to go back for a second to something you said about how, when you were hearing yourself just now say this to me and talk about this here on the pod, you're like, oh my God, that was kind of ridiculous that something like that was bothering me. But I think that that's such an important point to flesh out of this particular conversation, because these things that are built up in our head, the stress, the anxiety, the depression, the pressure, all of it, anger, whatever it is that you're feeling, frustration, they're so amplified when they're stuck alone in our head, when they're just kind of bouncing around from side to side and we are the only ones engaging with those thoughts. You're not talking them through. That's why, like, this episode, I didn't even realize until we started talking and until we started recording, like, how important this episode is right now for you and for anybody who might be in the same kind of a headspace listening to this, saying, I'm feeling all these things. I see myself going low. I'm not really sure what to do with it. We're always taught not to say things. We're taught to keep all this stuff inside, or if I say something, it's going to make it worse, or it's going to raise alarm bells, or it's going to start a chain reaction. But it's so important for so many different reasons to talk these things through, whether it's picking up a lifeline and connecting with a counselor, or whether it's a therapist, or whether it's your partner or a friend, whatever it is. Just being able to communicate what's rattling around in your head can so often give you that perspective that being alone in your own head does not give us.
Uh-huh.
Does that all make sense?
Yes. And I did do that last weekend. I was just feeling really down, and I ended up calling my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And she just listened, and I cried and just said the quiet parts out. I mean, I didn't say, that I was actively like not wanting to be here, but just venting the life frustrations of being a mom and a parent in this environment that we're all struggling so hard to exist in right now. We talked about it in a previous episode, how the world just feels so heavy right now.
Because it is.
Yeah. And it's just the stress of, wanting to get my children in therapy and doing that. And then it's cost, insurance, and not being able to do this and that because of money. And, then we're bombarded with what's going on in the world right now. It's just this never ending cycle of just shit coming at us. And I talked before about how I was trying really hard not to listen or watch anything about the files. And I'm still, as little as I am scrolling, I am still getting bits and pieces of information. And
you're talking about the Epstein files?
Yes.
Things like that kind of news? Yeah. Yeah, because it's everywhere.
It is. It's literally everywhere. And, excuse me, as somebody with, obviously, I have a very active imagination. And so when I hear just bits of information, or I see an image, all it takes is 3 seconds. And that image is in my brain. And then all of a sudden, my brain is actively like imagining these horrors that these children and babies or whatever it was were going through, and it makes me violently ill.
Well, this is also coming from your own past trauma, because, again, anyone who doesn't know your story fully, you were raised as a part of the FLDS polygamy cult. You were sexually abused by your brother. You endured domestic violence. You've lost 5 brothers to suicide, attempted 3 times. I mean, you have had your share of shit. And those parts of your past and your lived experience that deal with abuse, in particular sexual abuse, that, looking at something like what's going on with the Epstein files, for instance, where it's all over everyone's news feeds, and it's going to be triggering to anybody who has gone through anything even remotely like that. It's no wonder that that's adding to everything that you're feeling right now, and just triggering you in those ways.
And I know also, and I'm just looking at all the different things. We're at a time in a year where it's dark, it's cloudy, we're not getting enough sunlight. And I'm doing a fair amount of taking all my vitamins and my supplements. And when it's decent weather, I'll go for a walk at work on my breaks. I know what I'm supposed to do, and I'm actively doing those things. And it just feels like no matter what I do, the water's here.
Yeah.
And sometimes it'll get about there and I can breathe, but then it's back up here. So really quick, and I apologize, I forgot to bring these poems. Let me excuse myself for 1 second. I'm going to go grab those because I want to read the one at least. All right. So this poem that literally, and I don't consider myself a poet, but I'll tell you what, something's happened in me in the last 6 months.
It's bringing out your inner poet.
It is. The honest truth is, I wish for death every day. I'm so tired of fighting to live each day. I don't want to die by my own hand, but I'd gladly welcome death if it came to me gently to rest on me, quietly drifting off so my soul could finally rest.
First of all, it's a brave thing to put on paper. It's a braver thing to read it here on this podcast, to share it with me, to share it with whoever else is listening to this conversation. And it's hard. It's hard to receive something like that from somebody you care about. And what people need to understand, if you're listening to this conversation right now, Natasha and I talked earlier this morning. I had no idea that you were feeling quite the way you were feeling. Like, I knew that you were like burnt out about TikTok and things like that because you were like really kind of doing a lot on that particular platform. It was taking a lot of your time. You were kind of feeling burnt, took a step away. I didn't really realize until a few hours ago that your headspace was really where it is. And, you know, it's not an easy thing to open up and to share those kinds of thoughts. I mean, those are, I'm not going to lie, like those are really dark thoughts. And there's a lot of ideation mixed in there. And what I want to know, and I know that you've said this before in regard to kids, and when you've been close in the past and just the idea of writing a letter to your kids, a suicide note to your kids, stopped you. I want to put that aside for a second and ask you what else has ever gotten you out of where you are right now, this kind of place. What's gotten you out of it in the past? Because that's an important thing to focus on right now.
Well, prior to having kids, there wasn't anything getting me out of it. There's actual, and again, in reading my journals and reflecting and going back, years, decades later, though, there were the 3-4 times where I actually had a plan in place, where I actually attempted. There's no medical reason I should be here, but there's probably countless times according to my journals where I was actively like putting a plan in place. And the problem is I don't write. I am isolating and I don't write about, so I don't know what, and because of all the trauma that I experienced, my memory is pretty fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if it is just I keep myself busy and I just get up each day but prior to having kids, there wasn't really much to keep me here. And ever since, having children now, because I've had the thoughts before with the kids, it was just the closest that I got and actually had a plan in place was 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But
we've talked about that on the pod.
Yeah. But I do recall other times when the children were young. George traveled a lot for work, was basically a single mother. I do recall times where it was in my head and it's right now. And since becoming a mother, that is the only thing that keeps me here.
Okay.
So I hold on to that.
Okay. So we need to build onto that is what we need to do. It's not a matter of holding on to that. It's a matter of building a safety net around that. It's finding a support system that goes beyond that. Like you said, you have your close friend. You said you have, who you confided in. And obviously you and I talk all the time. And you have a great relationship with your husband, who's been unbelievably supportive of you all these years through everything that you've been through, because he's been with you for the great majority of it.
23 years.
Yeah. And I know we've talked about therapy in the past. And is that still something, remind me, is that still something active in your life right now, therapy?
It is not.
Okay.
It's because we didn't have insurance for 2 years,
Uh-huh.
and it's an option now. I got a job where I have insurance and things like that. It's just, just getting it set up, and I didn't realize that I thought I could, power through,
Yeah, we
and it's
can't do
something.
that, honey. We can't do that. You know what? Look, you had the same conversation with me last week offline, saying, when we were talking about, because I lost my mother-in-law, we've had a lot of stress here. I'm moving my parents into an independent living community. Things are changing. And you called me out and said, what are you doing to take care of yourself right now? How are you managing this? Because you're burning it in every which way. And eventually all that does is burn you out. And you're kind of in a similar situation right now where you've just got this incredible heaviness around you, and you just can't power through that and expect to be able to manage that way and resolve what's going on. You see, these are kinds of things that we can't just put Band-Aids on. These are kinds of things that we need to work on. And you know that. You know that because you've just been in a place of working on it for so long in your life. There's so much trauma that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. And it's hard. I think for you, it's probably a lot harder than the average person because there is just such an enormous amount of deep trauma that you carry that has to be dealt with, that is constantly surfacing and resurfacing. And I mean, speaking as your friend and somebody who loves you and obviously someone who cares about your mental health and wellness, I'm going to tell you right now, like when we stop recording, you're going to call a therapist and try to make an appointment. You know you need to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what you have in your pocket, every single thing that you have in your pocket, friends, family, therapy options, support groups in your area, every single one of those things, those are the things that you want to take advantage of the best that you can. Because what you don't want to do is stay in a cycle where you're just existing. Because that's going to come around and bite you in the ass at some point. And you're not going to be able to outrun the way that you feel. And you're not going to be able to hold yourself back from these thoughts becoming more and more overpowering. So it's about creating a safety net and a plan for yourself. Like, okay, what do I do when I feel like this? Who do I go to? How do I get out of it? What are my go-tos? I mean, I know for you, music is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Writing is a big thing. Being able to do what you and I do and talk about what's going on in your head, those are big things for you. So you need to just put a big, big toolbox together of your own, and I'm air quoting now, things that shift you from this state of mind, things that make you feel joyful and make you feel complete. What you said you were lacking joy. Things are feeling just numb and dark. What is one thing that brings you joy right now? Thing, person, place. What is it?
Looking for mental health resources that actually fit who you are and where you come from? Then you need to check out the HelpHUB. It's not another generic wellness site. It's a free, inclusive online platform built for real people living real lives. People managing stress, anxiety, depression, trauma and abuse, grief or suicide loss. At the HelpHUB, you'll find the resources, tools, treatment options, and trauma-informed content you need in the moment without having to dig through endless tabs or start from scratch. It's your place to land, to take a breath, and to find exactly what you need when you need it most. Visit thehelphub.co, where the help you need is just a click away.
I swear I feel such a horrible person.
Why?
Because immediately I know that I should see my children, my husband, but I can't even say that right now
Okay.
because
Okay.
that's just like an added layer of stress
Why?
because I always feel like I'm failing them. And
Why? What do you feel like you should be doing that you're not already doing?
I don't show up for them in the ways that I know that they need, and I care because of everything that I carry. I know it's evident in how I show up for them because it gets to be too much, and I want to be this amazing mother that's fun and outgoing and bubbly and who I used to be, but I feel like I've lost her. Like she died.
When?
She died sometime in the last 5 years,
Okay. Okay.
and I don't know how to get back to her.
Well, maybe you're thinking about it the wrong way. Maybe it's not about getting back to her. Maybe it's about starting in a new place, starting with a new perspective, meeting yourself exactly where you are right now. Whose image are you trying to keep up with? Is
My
it
own.
okay? Your own of what you think you should be, or your own of who you feel you were at one point, or both? What image? What is the image that you have that you're trying to keep up with?
Just this version of me that's this like perfect example. Yesterday, I got an email from the school, and Kirsten, my daughter, was accepted into a prestigious program for high school.
That's amazing.
And I was so excited, and I printed the letter off for her, and I was going to come home and celebrate with her and everything. But they had already called her to the office and had informed her. And I just didn't do anything else about it. You know what I mean? Like I want so bad to celebrate these wins with my children, and somehow it's just the smallest little thing is like, oh, whatever. Or again, it's just, or if I have a bad day or whatever, I don't feel like I feel like every day I'm failing my children. I'm failing my husband because I know what it's like to have parents that were emotionally absent or overwhelmed. And I don't want that for my children. And
Do you
so,
do you know that you can be emotionally overwhelmed and still very much there for your children? Do you know that? Has anyone ever told you that?
no,
You can be. You're
how?
because you meet yourself where you are. I say it all the time, but it's so applicable right in this moment. You know how you and I talk so often about how grief and joy can coexist? We talk about that all the time, right? Do
Right.
you agree that that's a reality?
Yes.
Okay. So this is no different. Like you're a human being. You're a human being who has your own set of emotions and feelings and triggers and traumas and idiosyncrasies. We all do. And you're also a mom, and you're also a wife, and you also work, and you're also a friend, and you're also all these other things in the world. You're allowed to be overwhelmed. You're allowed to not be the one to be the cruise director for your family 24 hours a day. I used to always feel that way. For the longest time, I used to feel like everyone's happiness and well-being was my responsibility. I had to be on my game all the time. I had to be joyful, and I wanted to be. I never used to give myself permission to not be. And when I started doing that, and when I started realizing that I can't be responsible for everybody else's happiness, like if I'm not good in my own head and my own heart, how the hell am I supposed to be the caretaker of everybody else's happiness? You're in that place right now. And I just wonder what it would feel like for you, how it would change things for you if you took the way you felt right now and then thought about the reality that you don't have to always be the one to make sure that everyone is okay. I've had this thing, and I've talked about it in the last year on the podcast. I don't remember which season, but it came out in therapy for me that I have this really, really deep, strong, hypervigilant side. Have we talked about that?
Yes, we have.
Okay. So then you know what it is when I say that. That hypervigilant side, because I lost my father very young and I didn't have any siblings, and it somehow became hardwired into me that I needed to make sure that everybody was okay. So I'm always kind of running around everybody in my family. It's why I always think of everybody else before I think of myself. Always.
Yeah.
And you're doing that. You're doing that. You're so hyper vigilant about everybody else's joy and contentment and happiness that you're not recognizing that it's not all your responsibility. You know, obviously you're a mom and you want to take care of your children, and it's our responsibility as parents to do that, and you want to be present for them and be supportive of them and be nurturing to them. And you are all those things. And you can be all of those things, even if you're having a bad day. It doesn't take away from the fact that you love your kids, that you're there for your kids, that you support your kids, that you're at every game or every show or every concert or every school event, because you are. True? Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Are you there every night when they get home?
Yes.
Are you there when your son wants to stick to you like Velcro? Are you there hugging on him on the couch watching TV as a family?
Yes.
Okay. And you're there around the dinner table and you're there to celebrate the wins?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe it's a matter of perspective. Maybe some of what's going on in your heart and your head that feels so heavy and that feels like such failure, maybe that isn't failure at all. Maybe that's just you putting way, way too much pressure on yourself to be something that you're idealizing that you can't compare yourself to. You can't. I don't care what plans any of us have on any given day to be any certain thing to anybody, including ourselves. Shit happens. And some days are good days and some days are bad days. And the fact of the matter is, we can only meet ourselves where we are in the moment with the same kind of compassion for ourselves that we give to everybody else. Like, you're not giving yourself any of that I see. You're just disappointed and angry at yourself because you don't feel like you deserve to be upset or withdrawn or isolated or sad. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So what do you think it might look like to start by saying, okay, I am overwhelmed. Like, you just did it. You just did it right now. Like, you're not just talking to me right now. You're talking to everybody else who listens to this podcast. Anybody else.
And I think it's important to also say that I have not told my husband that I'm feeling this way. So I think that would be the first step.
Well, that kind of has to be the first step, unless you want me to delay this episode from posting when it posts. No, I'm not making light of it. I mean, I definitely agree that you have to have that conversation, because this, even though you and I knew what we wanted to talk about today, this conversation, like so many of our conversations, is so organic and it goes where it goes. And this one went to a place that I'm not sure either one of us expected it to go. And I don't know how you feel about where it went. I know that it was definitely scary to hear you say some things. I'm not right around the corner. I can't just run over to you and, throw my arms around you and let's go for a walk and let's talk it through. It's not like that. But I'm so glad that we are having this conversation so that I know where you're at and you can articulate where you're at, because saying all this stuff out loud is, whether it be to yourself or someone else or George or anyone in your life, like that's where it starts. It's acknowledging it out loud.
Well, and having the courage and the strength to say the quiet part out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to say this, though. I have tried to be a little bit vulnerable with a couple people just to let them know that I was kind of feeling a little bit heavy. And so I feel like there needs to be some education or maybe some awareness to people when somebody comes to you and has the courage to come to you and say, hey, I'm feeling, even if they don't say it, but, I would just say something like, I'm just tired, or, I feel, but I was trying to get to that point where I could tell them or just be open and raw. And they would immediately jump to, but look everything you've been through. Look, and you're so strong. You've come out on the other side. It's like, I don't need to be reminded.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I don't need to be reminded of my strength.
Mm-hmm.
I know. And I'm tired.
Yeah.
And so it's just, just having so if somebody is coming to what I'm trying to say is if somebody is coming to you and is being raw and vulnerable, don't remind them of their strength or what they've been through. They know. Just listen.
Mm-hmm.
And a simple, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. And just let them talk.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exactly what you have done for me today. You didn't remind me of my strength or, you did mention my past and all that stuff, but that was for our listeners.
Well, right. That's just context. That's
right. Yeah. You're providing context to our listeners, but you didn't ever remind me of my strength or look what I've been through or whatever, just listening. And so being able to say the quiet part out loud and openly, I can already tell has taken some weight off. And writing, that was just one poem. I'm not joking you. I sat there at work the other day and these words were just pouring out of me for a solid 30 minutes. And I wrote poem after poem after poem. And that felt better. So it's a matter of it's almost like a download of getting everything that's up here out and out into and speaking it, whether it's on paper, words, whatever. Hell, a scream. And
I think that, you first of all, I'm glad that the conversation was what you needed it to be and was helpful in maybe just releasing it or giving perspective or just being able to hear it out loud or say it to another human. I'm grateful for that. It's important to talk about the power of holding space, which is what you just said. It is such an underrated skill that every single one of us has the capacity to do, but we don't often do it enough because it's really, really uncomfortable.
Right. It's very uncomfortable.
When I'm on crisis lines, one of the things that we do, it depends on, I'm a crisis counselor on a couple of different platforms. And with one of them, our goal is to listen 80% and engage 20%. So you're really, really in a place of being expected to listen wholeheartedly, non-judgmentally, which is a big part of holding space, is to be non-judgmental to that person. And that can be really awkward, especially when you feel like you need to be responding. You need to be engaging. But like you said, that's so often not what a person needs. They just need to be heard and validated. The other thing that I do think is worth mentioning in this conversation, because you shared a lot of things that were dark, that were heavy, and that is what we do on this podcast. We have gone to some very deep places and talked about some very, very heavy things, and I think this may be one of the heaviest conversations. And I want people who are listening who might be concerned, like there are people who might be very concerned if you're okay right now. So what I would say, which I think goes hand in hand with, okay, how do you sit there and help someone who's coming, like you're coming to me or to this conversation with some really heavy, hard stuff? It's the holding space part, but it's also saying, well, what are you doing next? What's your plan? What's your safety plan? Like, I know you said you haven't done anything to try and harm yourself. I know you said you don't have a plan. I know you said you're not contemplating hurting yourself. But I would say, especially since you don't have therapy right now in your back pocket, you're working to get therapy established again. I would say, remember that 988, I would say this to you and I would say this to anybody. Remember that lifelines like 988 are available 24 hours a day for anything, for just feeling dysregulated, for feeling suicidal, for being terrified of a situation in your life, for any reason whatsoever that you're not okay. that is a place to start. And there are also places that you can go online if you're feeling like you need to be isolating and you're not feeling like engaging with people in person. There are online support groups. You just need to show up, and you have the ability to do what you just did, which is to talk through what you're feeling and what you need. And then the other thing is just having that courage that you had to say, this is where I'm at, and then this is what I need. Those are the biggest parts. And you've done all that. I mean, what else do you feel like you need right now to feel like you're a little bit more balanced than you were when this conversation started?
I think number one, the most important thing for me to do is to get therapy set up.
Mm-hmm.
So taking care of that. And then I need to have a very candid, honest conversation with George.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, so that he's aware of what's going on, because he can't help if he doesn't know.
Right. No one can.
I've had countless people who have listened to our podcast now, and they realized for years, decades, that I was suicidal and had absolutely no idea. Family members that no idea, because I never said anything, because I carried it all inside. And that is why I got to the points where I did for those 3 or 4 times. And so, yes. So I see what you're doing here. You're helping me get a plan in place. So getting therapy set up, having a conversation with George, and it's decent enough weather. I was just looking outside.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go for a walk.
Good. How do you feel now compared to how you felt 45 minutes ago?
Good. Like, not good, but like better.
I know what you mean.
Like, just a little bit lighter. And if that's all it is just a little bit lighter.
Well, that's what you build on. It's not about, I wish I could sit here as your friend, as your co-host, as a crisis counselor and say to you, I have got all the answers. Let me fix you. That's what I wish I could do that. Every single therapist in the world thinks, wishes that they could do that, or counselor. And the reality is that we can't. It's not our job. Our job is to listen and to give support and to offer strategies and offer community and offer different support systems that you might not know of or you might not think of, and just to be a place for you to say it out loud. So I'm grateful that you said it out loud. And it did take an incredible amount of courage to come on here and be that vulnerable in this kind of a space. So I hope if there's one thing that you personally take away from this conversation, I hope it's the reality that you don't have to expect that you are the one who has to manage everyone's highs and lows. That you're not the one who's responsible for everybody else's happiness and joy. You're allowed to have a shitty day. You're allowed to be in a mood. You're allowed to just take a break and not have to keep the weight of that pressure to be all the things to all the people on you all the time, because it is not your responsibility to make sure that everybody is okay all the time. I've learned that the hard way. It's taken me a long time to learn that we can take care of the people that we love and also take care of ourselves at the same time.
Okay.
So if there are other takeaways that anybody else can take from this conversation, it's say the things out loud. Find the person, find the safe space or the safe person or the therapist or the friend, and say the thing out loud that's in your heart, that's on your mind, that's weighing you down. And just try and be as honest as you can be, because like we just said, if people don't know you're hurting, they can't help you fix what's going on the inside if they don't know. Right? And just replace the I'm fine, which we all say on repeat. Replace that with one honest sentence. one honest thing. If somebody asks you how you really are, start there. Because once you start there, the rest will follow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just want to tell everybody that's listening right now that I will be back next week. I'm not going anywhere. And most importantly, thank you for listening and thank you for caring, because I do get messages from people through social media platforms that I've connected with, and they genuinely care and they listen. And I want you to know that I hear you and I see you and I appreciate you more than words could say.
Well, look, you know what? This is the reality. We say it every week, we are all surviving together. And you and I are doing it. We're all doing it as a greater community, and we're going to keep doing it. And when we're not okay, we're going to bring it here, and we're going to find a way through it. Right?
Absolutely.
All right. I love you, babe.
I love you.
I'll see you next week.
Okay.
Thanks so much for listening and for being part of the Survivors community. No matter where you are in your story, you're not alone, and you're definitely not broken. Healing takes time, and it looks different for everyone. The fact that you're still here and still trying means you're already doing the hard work. If something in today's conversation resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. That's how we keep these conversations going and remind each other that there's always hope.
And if you or someone you know is struggling, please remember, help is always out there. You can call or text 988 anytime to reach a trained crisis counselor like me. And for more mental health resources, tools, treatment options, and content to support your mental health, visit the HelpHUB.co. We're so grateful you're part of the Survivors family, and we'll be back next week with another honest conversation about life after the hardest things. Until then, take care of yourself and your people, and keep surviving.